My Uncle Walter sets a leather folder on the conference table, like he's doing me a favor just by showing up. He's dressed in his usual way. Pressed shirt, expensive watch, the confident posture of a man who's never once questioned his own decisions. "I've been managing your mother's inheritance on your behalf," he says. His voice is pleasant, warm even, like he's announcing good news at a birthday party. "Don't worry, Elaine. You're taken care of." He slides a spreadsheet across the table toward me, numbers in neat columns, account names, dates, amounts. His finger taps a line near the bottom. I follow his finger and read it. Distribution $0 to Elaine Porter. 0. Nothing. My name next to a 0. Walter is still smiling. "You'll thank me later. I used it where it mattered, where it was needed most." The room tilts slightly. My mother died 8 months ago. She worked her entire life, saved carefully, quietly, the way she did everything. Left behind $2.5 million that she specifically wanted me to have. $2.5 million, gone. My throat tightens so hard it's difficult to speak. "Where did the $2.5 million go, Walter?" He folds his hands on the table. Calm as a banker closing a routine transaction. "It went to the family. I'm Elaine. I'm 58 years old, and I've spent most of my adult life working 2 jobs. Not because I was careless. Not because I made mistakes. Because life is expensive, and I never had a cushion. My mother died last winter, and it felt like losing the only person in the world who saw me clearly. Who understood that being quiet didn't mean being weak. Who knew that working hard in silence was its own kind of strength. That money wasn't a lottery ticket. It wasn't something I was counting on to become rich. It was what my mother left so I could finally stop working doubles and breathe. Pay off my medical bills. Maybe buy a small house. Maybe sleep without calculating whether the paycheck would cover everything. Walter has always been the family fixer. That's the word people use. What it really means is that he likes control, likes being needed, likes having access to other people's resources. He pats my hand across the table like I'm a child who's been given a difficult concept to understand. "You didn't have the head for it, sweetheart. Managing that kind of money requires experience. Relationships. I handled it so you wouldn't have to stress." I stare at his hand on mine. This man who decided, without asking me, that I couldn't manage my own mother's gift. "Sign the release," he says, pushing another paper toward me, "so we can close probate and move on." The paper is titled Receipt and Release. I read it slowly. My eyes catch on specific phrases. "I, Elaine Porter, acknowledge receipt of my full and complete share of the estate of Doris Porter. I release all claims, known and unknown, against the estate and its administrator." I look up at Walter. This says I was paid. He doesn't blink. "You were. In benefits, in support, in stability over the years." I wait for him to explain what that means. He doesn't. My cousin Alyssa sits beside him. She's been quiet this whole meeting, nodding at appropriate moments like a trained witness. Her expression is sympathetic but careful. "Elaine," she says gently, "Walter did so much for the family after Grandma passed. It's not just about numbers." "Benefits," I say. "What specific benefits?" Walter waves his hand. "Contributions to family expenses, supporting your brother when he needed it, keeping Grandma's house maintained. Those were my mother's savings, which I managed responsibly." My hands are flat on the table to keep them steady. Walter leans forward. "If you don't sign this, you'll drag out probate for years. Court costs, attorneys, delays. You'll drain whatever's left. Is that what your mother would have wanted?" I don't sign. I go home and sit at my kitchen table for a long time. Then I pull out the one document I saved from the meeting with my mother's attorney right after she died. I was out of state when Mom passed. A work trip I couldn't cancel, one of the cruelest timing coincidences of my life. By the time I got back, Walter had already inserted himself, already contacted the court, already positioned himself as the person handling things. The summary letter from my mother's attorney is clear. Primary beneficiary, Elaine Porter. Estate administrator, Walter Harmon, appointed on a temporary basis pending beneficiary availability. Temporary. Not permanent. Not ongoing. Temporary because I was unavailable for 72 hours. And Walter turned those 72 hours into 8 months of control. I read the letter 3 more times. Then I call the probate court clerk. "I'm calling about the estate of Doris Porter," I say. "I'm the primary beneficiary. Can you tell me what's been filed? The clerk checks the records. Then she tells me something that makes the blood drain from my face. The court is expecting a final accounting from the administrator. A detailed one. With documentation. It hasn't been filed. 8 months after my mother's death, Walter hasn't filed the required accounting with the court. The next morning I drive to the courthouse. The clerk is a middle-aged woman with reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She pulls up the estate file on her computer. We have initial estimates submitted at opening, she says, but the detailed inventory and accounting hasn't come in yet. Initial estimates. That spreadsheet Walter showed me wasn't an official court filing. It was a performance. Numbers on a page designed to look official and make me feel like everything was handled. What am I entitled to request as an heir, I ask. She prints me a list. Hands it over the counter. Bank statements from the estate account, disbursement records, receipts for estate expenses, correspondence about asset management, documentation of any transfers made after the estate was opened, everything Walter has been calling unnecessary. Every time I've asked a question in the past 8 months, he's deflected. You're too emotional right now. Trust the process. I've handled thousands of these situations. I fold the list carefully and put it in my purse. Outside the courthouse, I sit in my car and read it again. This list is a weapon. A legal, procedural, completely legitimate weapon. And for the first time since my mother died, I feel something shift inside me. The helpless fog starts to lift. I know what to do next. I send Walter a formal written request for all estate records. Not a phone call, not a text, a letter. Certified mail, return receipt requested. I list every document I'm entitled to receive. Bank statements, disbursement records, receipts, correspondence. His response comes by phone, not letter. He calls within 20 minutes of the delivery confirmation. Are you serious right now? His voice is tight with anger, performing disbelief. After everything I've done for this family? You think I stole from your own mother? I keep my voice quiet. I think you spent money you weren't authorized to spend. That is an insult. That is an absolute insult. The court requires a detailed accounting, Walter. That's not my opinion. That's the law. You're ungrateful. Your mother would be ashamed of you. The words land like a slap. He knew exactly where to aim. I breathe through it. Don't respond. Wait. Walter's voice drops lower. I've been paying you a support allowance every month out of my own generosity. If you want to make this adversarial, that stops today. Support allowance. Every month, a small deposit into my account. I thought it was from the estate. I never questioned it because Walter always made it sound like my mother had set it up. I now realize it was a leash. A small payment to keep me quiet and grateful and dependent. Stop it, I tell him. Within 24 hours, my phone starts ringing. Not relatives checking if I'm okay. Relatives warning me I'm making trouble. My Aunt Frances calls. Walter has sacrificed so much for this family. Is this how you repay him? My cousin Paula calls. We're all going to suffer if you drag this into court. Think about everyone else, Elaine. A distant cousin I haven't spoken to in years leaves a voicemail about family loyalty. None of them ask what Walter actually did with my mother's money. None of them ask whether I've been treated fairly. I call my brother Mark. He's the one person I thought might be on my side. He sounds uncomfortable from the first word. Elaine, look, Walter was just trying to help everyone out. He kept things running. With whose money? Mom's. But Mom would have wanted. Mom left a will, Mark. It doesn't say spread it around, it says it goes to me. Long pause. I hear him breathe. Walter paid off my credit cards last year, he finally says. He said it was from family funds, that Mom had set something aside for everyone. Family funds. My mother's money, distributed like a personal slush fund by a man who was only supposed to keep records. He says it quietly, like he already knows it's wrong. I ask Mark to meet me for coffee. He comes. He looks embarrassed. He looks like someone who made a decision he can't fully defend and has known it ever since. He wraps his hands around his coffee cup and stares at the table. Walter called me 2 months after Mom died, he says. Said Mom had wanted the money to be used for the family's benefit. Said you wouldn't understand because you were too emotional. That you just wasted on. He stops. On what? On paying off debt. On living expenses. Things he said weren't good investments. I stare at him. My brother. He convinced you I'd waste my own inheritance. He made it sound like he was protecting you by taking it from me. Mark rubs his face. I didn't know he was going to keep that much. I thought he was managing it. I thought you were getting your share and he was just distributing what was left. There was no what was left. It was all mine. Mark is quiet for a long time. Then he slides something across the table, a paper. He had me sign this. After he paid off my cards, said it was just paperwork, just acknowledgement. I pick it up and read it. It's a loan agreement, with family estate listed as the lender. The loan agreement has no interest rate, no repayment schedule, no due date, just Mark's signature at the bottom, and a dollar amount, $42,000. $42,000 from my mother's estate, loaned to my brother with no terms, no oversight, no court approval. Spent like it was Walter's personal fund to distribute. I feel rage rise inside me, hot and immediate. I let it come. Then I let it settle into something colder and more useful. Focus. Did Walter pay for anything else with family funds? I ask. Mark looks at the table. Alyssa got something. A down payment. Cash. For her house. Alyssa's house. I attended the housewarming party. She was so excited. I gave her a gift. I stood in her new kitchen eating cheese and crackers, never knowing I'd help pay for it. How much? I don't know. 60? Maybe 70,000? Walter called it a gift. A gift from an estate that was supposed to go to me. I drive home and sit at my kitchen table with the loan document in front of me. My brother's signature on a paper giving away my mother's money with no accountability. I think about how Walter called it family funds. How he made generosity out of theft. How he made everyone who benefited feel grateful instead of complicit. I need help. Professional help. The kind that doesn't flinch. I find her through a referral from my bank manager. A forensic accountant named Barbara Walsh. She's 60 years old, practical haircut, no jewelry except a wedding ring. Her office has no artwork on the walls, just whiteboards covered in numbers. She listens to everything I tell her. Doesn't interrupt, doesn't react with visible emotion. When I'm done, she asks 3 questions. Do you have access to any estate records? Some. The documents I found at home. Has a court ordered a formal accounting? Not yet. Do you have an attorney? Not yet. Get an attorney today, she says. I need legal authority to request bank records. Without it, we're working with incomplete information. She opens a folder. If Walter managed this money, he has records. Maybe hidden ones, maybe messy ones. But they exist. Money doesn't disappear, it just moves. What if he covered his tracks? Barbara almost smiles. People who steal from family usually make 2 mistakes. They get comfortable and they trust that the victim won't push back. She closes her folder. He thinks you're alone, that you'll be too overwhelmed, too sad, too busy to fight back. Are you? I think about my mother, about her letter with the summary, about $2.5 million. No, I say. Barbara picks up her pen. Then let's begin. We file a formal request through my new attorney for all estate bank statements. The attorney's name is Neil Brennan. He's in his 50s, speaks slowly, and doesn't waste words. Within 2 weeks, the bank provides most of what we asked for. Monthly statements from the estate account. Barbara spreads them on her conference table in chronological order. She goes through each one with a red pen. 6 months are missing. The 6 months immediately after my mother died. The period when the most significant transfers would have happened. When assets would have been liquidated, accounts moved, checks written. The most important 6 months. Gone. Barbara circles the gap in red. This is where people hide things. The initial period after death is when estates are most vulnerable. Records aren't organized, oversight isn't established, and administrators have the most freedom. Walter sends me an email that evening. His tone has shifted from anger to something closer to contempt. Stop harassing the bank. You're embarrassing yourself and the memory of your mother. These records are private estate matters, and I will handle them in the proper time and manner. Proper time and manner. 8 months after my mother's death. And he's still talking about his timeline. Barbara forwards the email to my attorney. He thinks he's still in charge, she says. He's about to find out he's not. Neil files the motion the following Monday. Formal accounting request. Subpoenas for the missing bank statements. Everything by the book. Walter shows up in court 2 weeks later, dressed sharply, walking with purpose. He performs his innocence well. sighs when the judge begins, shakes his head slightly at the right moments. Your Honor, my niece is grieving, he says. She lost her mother less than a year ago. She's overwhelmed. She's searching for someone to blame for her own difficult financial situation. He says it kindly, with visible sympathy, like he genuinely feels sorry for me. I sit beside Neil and keep my face neutral. Neil speaks next. He doesn't talk about grief or family or emotions. He talks about missing documents, about the estate's legal requirements, about an administrator's duty to the beneficiary and the court. Your Honor, we have received partial records covering approximately half the period in question. The remaining statements have not been provided despite formal request. The court's required final accounting has not been filed in 8 months. The judge is a man in his 60s. Judge Warren Collier. He looks at the paperwork Neil has submitted. He looks at Walter. Mr. Harmon, this estate has been open for 8 months. Where is the final accounting? Walter starts to explain. Something about complexity, about assets that require time to properly evaluate. Judge Collier holds up one hand. I want a complete accounting with documentation filed within 30 days. All bank records to be produced. Walter catches me in the courthouse hallway after the hearing. He walks quickly to cut me off near the elevator. His voice drops low. The pleasant, charitable tone is completely gone. You're making a mistake. You're going to destroy your mother's memory over money. I'm trying to find out where my mother's money went. He steps closer. Too close. His voice is almost a whisper. Your mother loved this family. She would have wanted us all to be taken care of. You are being selfish. You are choosing lawyers over your own blood. I'm choosing honesty over performance. His jaw tightens. Keep pushing, and the family will choose me. They always have. They always will. I've been there for them in ways you haven't even been here to see. Because I was working, Walter. 2 jobs, while you were spending my mother's money on down payments and credit card debt. He has no immediate answer for that. The elevator opens. I step in. That night, I find a certified letter taped to my apartment door when I get home from work. I open it standing in the hallway. Walter has filed a petition with the court requesting to remain as estate administrator for the protection of the primary beneficiary, who has demonstrated financial instability. He's trying to have me officially declared too unstable to manage my own inheritance. Barbara reads the petition the next morning and sets it down carefully. He's scared, she says. This is a desperate move, not a confident one. The petition claims I'm financially unstable based on 2 facts. I work 2 jobs and I have medical bills. Working 2 jobs is evidence of instability, according to Walter. The same Walter who's been secretly distributing estate funds to family members without court approval. Barbara's voice is steady. Working 2 jobs isn't instability. It's evidence you needed this inheritance. It proves exactly why your mother left it to you. Neil drafts the response. He attaches 3 years of my employment records. My payment history on my apartment. My clean credit report in every category not related to the medical debt. He attaches the incomplete bank statements. He attaches the missing months gap. He attaches the list of what Walter still hasn't produced. We're not defending you, Neil says. We're turning his attack into evidence against him. The judge schedules a hearing on Walter's petition and requests his supporting documentation. Walter's supporting evidence is thin, almost nothing. Judge Collier looks at the papers. Mr. Harmon, you're asking to maintain control of an estate you've administered for 8 months without filing required documents. What specifically supports your claim that the beneficiary is unfit? Walter fumbles through an answer. While gathering every document I can find related to my mother's estate, I go through the last box from her apartment that I never fully unpacked. Clothes I couldn't look at. A few kitchen things. Her reading glasses in a case. At the bottom, wrapped in a dish towel, is a small metal box, the kind with a simple key lock. The key is taped to the bottom. I open it at my kitchen table. Inside is an envelope, my name on the front in my mother's handwriting. My hands are shaking as I open it. The letter is 2 pages. Written carefully, her handwriting neat and familiar. She writes about her life, about what she wanted for me, about the years I spent struggling while she quietly saved. Then one paragraph that makes me stop breathing. Walter will try to manage what isn't his. He always has. He did it with your father's things after the divorce and with Aunt Carol's belongings after she died. Don't let him shame you into silence. Don't let him call you selfish for protecting yourself. Asking for what you're owed is not greed, it's respect. My mother knew. She knew exactly what he would do. At the bottom of the letter, she references something specific. There is an account at Heartland Savings. Account ending 4471. Ask about it. An account I've never heard of. I bring the letter to Barbara the next morning. She reads it without expression. When she finishes, she places it face down on the desk and picks up her pen. Account ending 4471. Heartland Savings. She types into her computer, searches the estate inventory. Account ending 44471 does not appear anywhere in the documents Walter provided. Not in the initial estimates. Not in the partial bank statements. Not in any filing with the court. An account my mother specifically named doesn't exist in the estate records. Barbara uses our court authority to request records from Heartland Savings directly. 4 days later, the bank confirms the account existed. A savings account opened in my mother's name 12 years ago. Steadily funded over time. Balance at time of death approximately $380,000. The account was closed 3 months after my mother died. Who closed it, I ask. Barbara looks at her screen. Walter Harmon, listed as authorized signatory on the account. Where did the money go when it closed? She turns the screen toward me. A closing check was issued. Made payable, not to the estate of Doris Porter. Made payable to Walter Harmon, personally. Walter's explanation at the next court hearing is that the closing check represented reimbursement. I spent years managing family affairs, he tells the judge. Travel, time, expenses. I was never compensated. This was simply a repayment for my years of service. Neil asks politely, do you have receipts for those expenses? I have records. Please provide them. What Walter produces is a box. Literally a shoebox. Inside, gas station receipts, restaurant bills. Vague descriptions handwritten on folded paper. Phone calls, family business, travel, estate matters, consulting services provided. Barbara doesn't argue. She takes the shoebox and she itemizes every single piece of paper in it. Total documented expenses $47,000, not $380,000. $47,000. Even if we accepted every vague receipt without question, the gap is $333,000. Then Barbara finds something else, buried in the receipts. A payment record for contractor services. A company called Riverside Building Solutions. Payment amount, $180,000. Listed as estate repairs. Barbara looks up the company. It's owned by a man named Floyd Kessler. Floyd Kessler is Walter's college roommate. Barbara pulls property records for every address in my mother's estate inventory. No repairs were done at any of them. Elaine, Barbara says quietly, looking up from her screen. This isn't sloppy bookkeeping, it's structured. Just when I think we've found the center of it, Walter does something I didn't expect. He flips the story. 2 days before the next court date, he files a supplemental response. In it, he claims that disbursements were handled primarily by Alyssa, that she managed the day-to-day transfers, that any irregularities were the result of her mistakes, not his direction. My cousin Alyssa, who nodded beside him at every family meeting, who told me I was making trouble, who has been quietly benefiting from the same funds Walter was distributing. I see Alyssa in the courthouse hallway before the hearing. She's crying. Real tears, not performance. I didn't know what I was signing, she says. I swear, Elaine, he gave me papers and said it was estate maintenance. I trusted him. I didn't read everything. For a moment, I almost believe her completely. Then Barbara pulls up a document on her tablet and shows me Alyssa's signature on a specific transfer authorization. And in the margin, handwritten, per Alyssa request, not per Walter direction. Per Alyssa request. Someone wrote those words to create a record that the transfer was her idea. Either Walter wrote them, or Alyssa did. I don't confront Alyssa in anger. I wait until after the hearing. Ask her quietly if we can talk privately. We sit in a conference room, no attorneys, just us. I need the truth, I say. Not what protects you, what actually happened. Alyssa is quiet for a long time. Her hands are twisted in her lap. Walter promised me a house, she finally says. He said there was enough money for everyone. He said you'd get your share and there would still be plenty left. He said I just needed to help keep the paperwork organized. help him file things correctly. What did that mean? He'd bring me documents and tell me where to sign. I didn't always understand them. I didn't ask enough questions. She looks up at me. He said you'd never notice. He said you were too busy, too tired. He said by the time probate closed, you'd just be grateful for whatever you received. They bet on my exhaustion. They looked at my 2 jobs and my long hours and my life spent barely keeping up, and they decided that was a weakness they could exploit. I'm sorry, Elaine. I really am. I believe she's sorry. I also know sorry doesn't return $2.5 million. There's something else, Alyssa says quietly. Something Walter thinks no one knows about. She pauses. The lake cabin. Ask about the lake cabin. My mother's lake cabin was the place she loved most in the world. 2 bedrooms, a small dock, a screened porch where she'd sit every summer morning with coffee. She talked about it in her letter. I assumed it was in the estate. Barbara searches the estate inventory. The lake cabin is not listed. She pulls deed history from the county recorder's office. The cabin transferred out of my mother's name 11 months ago, 1 month before she died. Transferred to a newly formed LLC, Henderson Property Management Group. Henderson Property Management Group was incorporated in the same month. Its registered address is a P.O. box. The mailing address for business correspondence, Walter Harmon's office suite. Barbara digs further. The LLC has been renting the cabin out. Short-term rentals, vacation bookings, every weekend from May through September. Rental income collected under the LLC, approximately $47,000 over the past year. He moved the cabin before your mother died, Barbara says carefully. Either she signed the transfer or someone signed it for her. My throat closes. Neil's voice is serious. If that transfer was unauthorized, if it was done without your mother's genuine consent, this goes well beyond a civil dispute. I think about my mother, sick, trusting, surrounded by family. I think about Walter handing her papers to sign. Just paperwork, Doris. Just business. Walter calls me late on a Tuesday night. His voice is different, quieter, the confidence stripped out of it. Elaine, I'd like to resolve this without things going further. I think we can come to an understanding. I say nothing. Let him fill the silence. I'm prepared to offer you $250,000. A clean payment. Final resolution. We close the estate, close the court process, and move forward. $250,000 from a $2.5 million estate. 10 cents on the dollar. Where did the rest go, Walter? His voice shifts back toward anger. Quick, like a reflex. You're being greedy. Do you understand that? Your mother gave me authority to help this family, and I did that. I helped people who needed it. With my money. With family money. My mother's will, says Elaine Porter. Not the family. You're going to regret pushing this. That's not a no, I say. That's a threat. Which means your offer isn't generosity, it's desperation. I hang up. Barbara calls me the next morning. He's offering pennies because the real money didn't just disappear. It moved somewhere. Probably somewhere we haven't found yet. He needs this to stop before we find it. Barbara traces every transfer out of the estate account systematically. Every payment, every check, every wire. She builds a flowchart on her whiteboard. Money leaving the estate. Splitting into smaller amounts. Moving through what looks like regular expense payments. Vendor payments, maintenance invoices, consultant fees. All with amounts just small enough to not trigger additional scrutiny on their own. But together, mapped across 18 months, they tell a story. The money flows into an account at a regional credit union. An account in the name of Harmon Property Advisors LLC. Walter's personal investment vehicle. Not one large theft. Dozens of small ones. Each one designed to look like normal estate administration. The total Barbara documents, $1.1 million moved from the estate into Walter's personal account through structured small payments. Add the closed Heartland Savings account. $380,000. Add the contractor payments to Floyd Kessler for work that was never done, $180,000. Add the lake cabin rental income, $47,000. She presents the full picture to me at her conference table. I sit looking at the numbers until my vision blurs. Neil requests a formal deposition. Walter must appear under oath. The judge orders it. The deposition happens in Neil's conference room. Walter, his attorney, me, Neil, Barbara. Walter arrives trying to project the same confidence he always has. The fixer. The patriarch. the man who knows more than everyone else. He tries charm first, gives long, detailed answers, explains how complicated estate administration is, how much expertise it requires. Barbara is patient. She waits. She starts with dates, simple questions about when specific transfers occurred. Walter's answers don't match the documents. She asks about the Heartland savings account. He claims he didn't know the balance, then claims he knew but it was legitimately his, then claims Alyssa had authority over it. 3 different answers to the same question. She asks about Riverside Building Solutions and Floyd Kessler. Walter says the repairs were extensive. Barbara asks for the addresses where the work was completed. Walter names properties. Barbara shows photographs, dated photographs. The properties look exactly the same before and after the alleged repairs. Walter says the contractor must have not done what he was hired for. So you paid $180,000 to a contractor who did no work, and you never followed up? Neil asks. Walter says he was overwhelmed, grieving. Then Barbara shows the LLC, Harmon Property Advisors. Walter's name, Walter's address. Walter's voice breaks. I did what I had to do. For who? Neil asks quietly. For the family, Walter says. Judge Collier delivers his ruling 2 weeks after the deposition. Walter is removed as estate administrator effective immediately. A professional fiduciary named by the court is appointed to take over. Walter is ordered to provide full disclosure of all assets, accounts, and transfers related to the estate. He's ordered to repay misappropriated funds or face contempt of court. Alyssa cooperates fully with the fiduciary in exchange for reduced personal liability. She provides text messages, notes, and documented instructions showing Walter directed every significant transfer. Every family member who received funds is contacted. Some payments, like Mark's credit card payoff, will need to be addressed, not punished, but addressed. Walter's reputation shatters in exactly the way things shatter when truth replaces performance. At the next community meeting of the family's church, where Walter has served on the finance committee for years, he quietly resigns. The families who've praised him for years go very quiet. The fiduciary begins working through the accounts. Then, buried in a file Walter never disclosed, they find something new. An investment account. In my mother's name, never listed in any estate document, never closed, sitting with accumulated returns for years. Balance $340,000. Walter didn't even know it existed. My mother was more careful than any of us knew. The final accounting is filed 6 months later. Between the court orders, the negotiated repayment from Walter, the recovered accounts, and the undisclosed investment account my mother had quietly grown, I receive what she intended. Not every cent. Some of what Walter spent is genuinely difficult to recover. Some of it is tied up in legal proceedings that will run beyond this year. But enough. More than enough. Enough to breathe. Damages and attorney fees are paid from Walter's side by court order. Mark pays back what he can, on a schedule, with genuine embarrassment and no excuses. The family members who warned me I was making trouble go quiet when they see the judge's findings. They don't apologize, but they go quiet. Sometimes that has to be enough. On a Saturday in October, I drive up to my mother's lake cabin. The fiduciary has transferred it back to the estate, which means it transfers to me. I park in the gravel drive and sit for a moment. The trees are turning. The lake is flat and silver in the morning light. I walk to the front door with my own key, the one the fiduciary mailed me last week. I unlock the door, step inside. It smells like pine and the faint trace of the cedar sachets my mother always kept in the closet. I sit down in her chair on the screen porch, the same one she described in her letter. I hold her letter in my hands, the one that started everything. She knew. She trusted me to see it through. I did. People will call you selfish when you stop being useful. Let them. Truth doesn't need their approval, only proof. I have all the proof I need.